What are we talking about today, Dahlia? We're talking about 10 years of Portrait of a Lady. 10-year anniversary. Does it smell as good as it when it first came out?
Stay tuned.
Do you like it still? All right, guys, if you want to find out about Portrait of a Lady, a full review today on this channel, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian with Smelling Great Fragrance Reviews. That's right. Today we're talking about Portrait of a Lady, a fragrance that we're both fans of. Dahlia loves it. I love it. And we're going to tell you all about this because this is the 10-year anniversary. But before we do that, if this is your first time tuning in and you still haven't subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So, Portrait of a Lady, a fabulous fragrance created by Dominique Ropion. What do you like about Portrait of a Lady?
There might be some patchouli in there.
I
might be a fan of the patchouli.
Does that do it for you, the patchouli?
It's this, okay, so we have to start the conversation at the very beginning. Apologies, this is Zoom and I need to find my light so that I don't look like I'm missing an eye. Yeah, this, when it came out, there was nothing like it that I had ever smelled. It was rose, but it was dark and it was a beast and it was so grown up. And at the same time, it was kind of a throwback and that kind of take no prisoners, I'm wearing perfume and if you don't like it, then sucks to be you. And
too bad.
Right. So, go suffer. It's just so don't care, live your life, kind of big and beautiful. The blend is perfect. It is flawless. It's a beautiful fragrance. Now, over the last 10 years, it has been reformulated. It's still very beautiful. There are
you brought it up.
am I not supposed to? I mean, it has, but it's slightly different now, which it happens. This is the original, and it's still the new version is still beautiful too. And there's other brands that have come out with patchouli roses since. None that really beat it, but it's not as dramatically different from anything else as it was 10 years ago. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I was looking for a way to prop that on here.
I'm gonna do that. That's really cute.
So let me give some details. So Frederic Malle's Portrait of a Lady came out in 2010, created by Dominique Ropion. $390 for a 100 ml bottle. Currently, it's Eau De Parfum concentration, and the style is Oriental Floral. And I'm going to read something that I wrote down from the Frederic Malle website. It says, at the foray, an exuberant dose of Turkish rose, 400 flowers per 100 ml bottle, no less. Beneath a bed of patchouli heart imbued with sandalwood and frankincense, an accord of clove, blackcurrant, and raspberry binds the perfume together for a final character.
That's true. That's true. The blackcurrant and raspberry is, I never think about it, but it's absolutely there as soon as you said it. It's like, yes.
The thing is, though, when you read the notes on Fragrantica, I think what they do is take the notes from the official notes, and they've added additional notes, which, according to Frederic Malle, top notes Turkish rose, heart notes blackcurrant, raspberry, clove, base notes patchouli, sandalwood, frankincense. Now, I've always thought that there was benzoin in the base notes, but it doesn't list them. But you do get a ambery base. They also list cinnamon, which I always thought this had cinnamon in it. According to Frederic Malle's website, it doesn't list cinnamon. It's more clovey, I guess.
I don't get cinnamon, actually. That makes sense to me. But I also don't really get sandalwood. I do get that incense, that sort of resinous frankincense. But like the blackcurrant and the raspberry, I don't really notice it until you say it. I don't. When my experience of it is rose, and patchouli, and then it's like, oh yeah, but that incense, and oh right, but the raspberry and the blackcurrant, that sharpness, and it really just comes together, and it's just the blend is so beautiful that I don't find myself thinking about the individual ingredients. I'm just kind of caught up in it.
Mhm.
And
So you
yeah,
said you said incense resinous, but do you not get smoke from this? Because I get incense smoke. Now, don't get me wrong.
we're not going to have this fight again.
Don't get me wrong. There is a sweet resinous touch there
Yeah,
in the base,
yeah.
but I get smoke as well. I get smoky. It's like smoke.
No, just
It's smoky,
incense.
girl.
Just incense. Okay, I have this tea. It's called Russian Caravan, something very romantic and like that. And it's very strong black tea with a smoke flavor added to it. And there are some fragrances, and there's one by Naomi Goodsir, I think, that's got a very
Very
dense,
smoky.
smoky.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. That is what smoky smells like to me. This does not have that. This has an incense smell, like the cone before it is burned. We every time that this we fight about this,
So,
we fight about soapiness. Like we could do it again. That's cool.
okay, so you're not picking up smoke, but you're picking up incense.
Yeah.
So, what is incense to you?
It is either a stick or a cone, and it is a mushed together resin that you then light on fire and burn. At which point there is a smell of smoke mixed with resin.
But the thing is, for me, here's the distinguishing part.
Oh,
When they say, okay, what you're talking about is frankincense before it's burned. Incense to me is the burned experience. Now, I'm not picking up like major full on in your face smoke, but it does have light smoky touches to me.
it feels like a cone of incense a little bit in the base.
No, but you know, it also has, you know, Fragranticalis's benzoin. I do pick up like resiny touches, vanillic resiny touches, but I pick that up separately in addition to the incense smoke. Anyway,
So
everybody experiences fragrances differently, so this argument really can't be won because it's
no,
all very subjective.
but it's like nice in like a cyclical sense that we get to do it again. Um, Ecstasy by Tiziana Terenzi has a similar incense rose kind of just that pairing a little bit, but
Mhm.
this is I mean this is a league of its own. This is its own. Um, I mean
Anyway,
this
we can
messed up the game when it came out.
totally, yeah, we can skip over our argument over smoke versus incense.
Well, we already had it, so but nobody won.
No, it's fine.
Anyway, what when did you first come across Portrait of a Lady?
So the story is, I've mentioned it many times. I went in to buy Black Afghano from Nasomato to Barney's, and I smelled Portrait of a Lady for the first time in 2012. And at that time, I didn't have a dedicated budget for buying fragrances, and I was in a different area of my life where I wasn't spending money on fragrances. So I couldn't buy both at the same time, or otherwise I would have bought both at the same time. But 2 weeks later, I went back to buy Portrait of a Lady, especially since it was so freaking expensive. So expensive. For me at that time, spending that much money was like, oh my God, really? On perfumes? But
Yep.
some of these fragrances are amazing. I'm fine spending money on them. And the funny thing was, when I went back to buy the fragrance, there was somebody else buying Portrait of a Lady at the same time. So it's like, this thing has a following. And at that time it was just 2 years that this fragrance was out, so I guess the the hype for that fragrance had just started around that time. So
It just started, but it's now a thing where it's like you do smell it on people, and back then you didn't. Maybe it had a cult following, but now it's almost like an accepted, not mainstream, but it's you do occasionally smell it on the street, which didn't happen before. Maybe not so much here. Maybe more like in colder, more like I feel like maybe more in Manhattan or Chicago. Kind of the Bay Area is not. I don't find that many people wearing.
I don't consider this place as a perfume wearing capital.
I mean, we do have at least 2 boutiques, but I just don't smell people wearing fragrances out and about very often. We're out there though. I mean, there's definitely a Bay Area community.
Oh, they're out there. Yeah, they're out there, but rare.
Maybe they're wearing them at home. And my point being that it's been discovered. It's sort of it's in the annals of niche perfume. Like if there was a Hall of Fame, like if somebody did the last, I guess this is the 21st century, right?
Yeah.
It is. So if
we're in the 21st century, Dahlia.
I had to think about it because time has ceased to exist because this lockdown is like, I don't even know what year it is anymore.
2030.
Oh God, don't even joke. But anyway, the point is, I feel like if somebody did a retrospective of like, the 21st century, this would be, of course, featured. There would be like a whole spread about this.
Yeah, in 2030, we'll be celebrating 20 years of Portrait of a Lady. But I think it's when a fragrance gets cloned by famous brands, it's made its success. I should say that. I mean, there's been so many copies of this thing.
Yeah, there's many versions. Let's say versions.
Yeah, I don't want to say they're copies, but it's inspirations.
Yeah, it inspired many other. I can think of 3 or 4. I'm not going to like do that and name them, but I can think of other brands that have similar, combinations of patchouli, rose, raspberry, incense. But I mean, everything about this. It's Frederic Malle. It's got that nice kind of like presentation. It's so sleek. It's the design, the bottle with the bottom of it, and like that just
classy.
It is. It's yeah. This is. I don't even know. I mean, it's a celebration. I mean, 10 years. My God, that seems like such a long time. But I remember. I mean, it's a very similar story to you. I remember because I didn't move out here until 2012, so it's similar timing actually. And I smelled it at Barney's, and it just like knocked me sideways.
That's exactly what it did to me. It's like,
yeah, just flattened me like something out of a cartoon.
Whoa!
Like, where has this been all my life?
Where has it been? Yeah, exactly.
And where you just kind of like hand over your card and like look away, and just, I mean.
I think I should have done that on that day that I went to pick up Black Afghano, but I was being very conservative. I'm like, no, I'm not spending that much money in one day. I was like, no way.
I got that. I mean, the smaller bottle is not. I think it's under 200. Am I right?
No, the small bottle. I have the price tag on mine. For Barney's used to put the price tag under there because these are not sealed, and mine says $225 when I bought it for the small bottle.
It hurts, but yeah, it's. I have now. I think I have 5.5 Frederic Malles because I have a travel size
5.5. Oh.
Of the Una Rose, but
well, what do you think about that? Comparing this one to Una Rose, night and day, huh?
There is no comparison. They're both rose, but they're different altogether. This is a red rose. That's a pink rose. This is a nighttime winter. That's like a daytime, almost green rose. This is almost like a throwback to the 80s in how big it is and how, like, I don't know. I mean, do we still say the fragrances are oriental? I mean, it just has a spiciness to it. They're just not even the same genre, even if they're the same flower.
I might have to disagree with you about the 80s thing. To me, this takes me back to Transylvania. It's very gothic. It reminds me of vampires.
You said that. I forgot about that. I mean, 80s in the sense of like, trying to think of a good example.
No, I can see though. I shouldn't say that, but I mean, I think it's because I associate this with like Gothic and Transylvania and Dracula and vampires and things like that.
Also, think about like the makeup of the 80s. It's very like
True.
fancy with like the crazy eyeliner and the sharp cheekbone thing and the wild hair. So like,
Yeah,
um, but it's that like, that if you wear it in an elevator, every other person who uses that elevator for the next 10 hours will
it's
experience
going
it
to
as
smell
well.
it.
Yeah. Which, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm smiling because I think that's fabulous, but I mean,
it
not
is.
a, which
Walking it.
that was more of like a 70s, 80s experience of perfume was, you left your signature scent behind you. Like, and I think that's not today's world of perfume, aside from in this.
Definitely not. This is a wow fragrance. It's attention getting, and I have been complimented many times on this particular fragrance. I've received compliments. Plus, I've sensed that people do not like it on me, and they kind of creep away from me because it's so strong and it's got a big presence.
I
It's a
haven't worn
hefty.
it. I haven't worn it in a while. Um, Partly because I'm saving it, but partly because
Oh, you have the original. That's why.
yes, but also it's. I mean, so it's partly that, but it's also because it's like it is so dramatic, and I wore it to work. Again, I feel like this is what I continue to do. And I told you this before. I walked past a bus stop on the edge of Union Square in the Tenderloin on my way to like the train or something, and
Hmm.
like three people sitting 20 feet away at the bus stop called out to me like in the morning, like, "Hey, you smell amazing!" But like really loud, Which I mean, that was nice. That was a compliment. They did ask me for money afterwards, so maybe
Wow,
they were homeless. I
that's
mean, it was
that's pretty.
San Francisco, so I mean, it was, but they noticed it at 20 paces. Like that, it's really strong. Um, and
One of
so, but
my
I, yeah,
one of my compliment experiences with this one is when we were in France, and I still have a little bit of my original bottle with a little bit of juice in it. I'm saving that one, of course. I was traveling with it, and we were driving around in probably the center part of France, near the Loire Valley, I think, or maybe a little further south. And we got hungry. We stopped into a restaurant in this small town with a famous medieval bridge. And I forgot the name of this bridge, but anyway, we went into this restaurant, and they sat us next to a French couple that were like almost finishing up. And as I got out of my car, I sprayed like three sprays of Portrait of a Lady, and we sat down. And the husband of the wife kept looking around and looking around, and I'm like, why is he looking? Because he was just like infatuated with the smell, and it's like finally he started speaking in French. He said parfum, parfum, and I'm like, oh god, we don't even speak French here. What am I going to say? A Portrait of a Lady from Frederic Malle. He didn't really know Frederic Malle, so guess what? I took the bottle with me, and it was with me. So I took it out, and I'm showing him the bottle, and he's like taking notes down and looking at the
oh,
name and everything, and it's like, I guess he really loved it so much. Not the wife, the husband really loved it. So he might be wearing this now.
it's extra bonus points in France. I feel like you get extra credit for a compliment in France that you then in America. Is that's snobby? I'm gonna go with it anyway. I feel like you get extra bonus brownie points that a French man like took down the name of your fragrance.
Yeah. And I don't usually get compliments in France. I don't know. I don't wear strong fragrances, but I think it was because I was like, I need to, replenish my fragrance. And probably as I got in, his smell had been accustomed to the smells of the food. So I must have
Right.
brought that smell in and hit his nose big time.
But it is very strong anyway. And
Yeah.
you do tend to like it's not just like One.
I'm very liberal with it.
Yeah, I've been there in the studio where it's like, oh, here, smell this, and it's like, so I'm just teasing you, but like this one is just so lovely. But yeah, there are many other fragrances now that have been inspired by it. It doesn't have the same impact for me now because I don't know, either my palate has changed or now I've smelled versions of it, or it's not that I don't love it. I do. It's like what else are you going to compare with rose and patchouli really? If you were doing a list of rose and patchouli, like what else would top it? Nothing. But like it's also not as novel. That's the word. It's I mean, 10 years is a long time. It's a familiar smell now.
Recently, I did a video on Frederic Malle's roses. He has 9 total rose fragrances in his whole entire collection. At least 9 I have. And this ranked at #1 because it's a very original fragrance when it was first launched. It's a great smell. It's really great. It's big. It's huge. It's massive. And I like that. Yeah.
And incredibly unisex. And
yeah, I was going to talk to you about the name and is it unisex? Is it masculine? Is it feminine? What do you think? What about? I mean, a lot of men that comment on the channel say you would actually wear a fragrance called Portrait of a Lady because the word lady portrait. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm looking at my phone right now, which is why I'm not looking at the camera, but it's a book or something.
Famous book.
Right, or a play. So Portrait of a Lady. By Henry James.
Henry James.
So yeah, sorry, like again for the looking away thing, but it's from, to your point about it being sort of Gothic and Victorian, the book was written in 1881.
Maybe that's it.
Oh my God.
It also reminds me of Phantom of the Opera.
But that's my face in the light that's reminding you of Phantom of the Opera, with like half of my face in shadow from like my giant hair and like the weird lighting in my Zoom world. But it is Henry James' most popular novel. And it is, the book was published in October of 1881. Portrait of a Lady was released in October of, I don't know, that's not significant at all. I'm going to get over that immediately. But it is the story of a spirited young American woman who inherits a lot of money and then becomes the victim of sort of like scheming of people who want her inheritance or to take advantage of it. But it's about the old world sort of deteriorating and being replaced by modernity. And it has a lot of themes about personal freedom, responsibility, and betrayal, according to Wikipedia. You're welcome. I haven't read it. But
interesting. Okay.
What
does that have anything to do with the fragrance? Just the name, probably.
I don't know. I mean, personal freedom to wear as big a fragrance as you want to, the responsibility that you take upon yourself when you spray 15 times and walk into a French cafe with a giant rose patchouli, the old world fragrance that used to be big and a celebration of a fragrance as opposed to like the I smell clean, approach to fragrance of the new world. I mean, I could listen. We both know I can talk. Like, if you want me to make a connection, I'm going to find one. But, I mean, maybe it was just the inspiration for it. I mean, I definitely see this as like a long, strapless evening gown kind of a fragrance. Like if politics aside, fur coats have a certain glamour. This is a fur coat kind of a fragrance, if you're into that sort of thing. I think for a guy, this is a very like tux kind of night at the opera. Like, I mean, this is glamorous.
Phantom of the Opera.
Again, my face. I will not sing to you, however, because nobody will ever watch your channel again. um, sorry. Just kidding.
But
Yeah.
when you, so you mentioned the different outfits that a woman would wear versus a man would wear. Whenever you were saying that what the woman would wear, you made it very feminine. But then when you said it with what a man would wear, it all of a sudden became very masculine. Isn't that how fragrances typically wear? I mean, when you wear a fragrance that's unisex, a woman brings out its feminine parts about that fragrance. And if a man wears a fragrance that's unisex, he brings out the masculine parts about that fragrance. That's what it reminded me when you were painting what men and women would wear when they're wearing this fragrance.
I
Isn't
think
that how
the
fragrances work? And isn't this how this works?
Well, like the final ingredient in a fragrance is the wearer, right? Like so many fragrances smell different on paper than they do on skin.
Mm-hmm.
Famously, we talk about how my skin hates and deconstructs so many fragrances. Like I'm not the only one who has that skin chemistry. I think the final ingredient is you, and if your personal body chemistry has a more masculine, I don't know, like musk to it, then that's gonna be a component of the wear. Um, but what you made me think of is another polarizing piece of literature. I think it must have been Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, which I have read. And there's a description of Dagny Taggart at some party, like a coming out party, debutante, something like that. And she wears an evening dress, but she wears like this heavy metal bracelet, which, and it's very extensive description of this, but it's about the balancing of this very angular, sort of thin person with a evening gown that's sort of delicate and wispy, but then with this heavy bracelet that emphasizes the frailness, but also sort of like gives an edge to it. And yeah, this walks that line where I did describe a very feminine silhouette, I guess, but it's almost like it transcends gender. It's like it's just a very adult and formal.
So the fragrance is formal to you. Do you not wear it casual settings? Because mostly I do casual settings and I wear it, but I never really dress up these days to dress up with a fragrance. So
Yes. I Like I said, I don't wear it very much anymore. But I did wear it when maybe not, like you're right, there aren't that many like evening events.
especially nowadays.
There's nothing happening right now on the evening front, but I, when I've worn it, it's been like a dress up kind of like getting dressed for work at the very least. It isn't
Mhm.
a one that I wear at home really.
Yeah.
It's too formal. It's not, it's a sit up, take notice kind of like, I'm not wearing it like Casbah we've talked about. That one for me is like, like wrap myself in a blanket, like all just for me. Like even though that one's very big, it's very cozy. We're not arguing about incense on that one and whether it's smoky or not, because nobody cares. But no, they do. Like maybe they care, maybe they don't. This is very. It's not sweatpants to me at all.
No.
How do you feel about sweatpants in public, Sebastian?
No. Now, I mean, I might go jogging in them when it's cold outside, but generally not meeting a friend or something in sweatpants. No. No.
No, and
No, this I could see that. Yeah, this is not a jogging pants kind of thing. It it
yeah,
it just reeks formal, but I'm just saying I don't really go to formal events these days. But I'm also not, wearing like crappy clothes and walking around either. But I love this fragrance. It's one of the masterpieces. It almost also reminds me of, you know, how there really are no mega pop stars anymore, no big Hollywood stars that, you know, make the millions and millions and millions of dollars. Like, this is almost like the last of the big mega star perfumes. Has anything come after this that's had that kind of a big following?
I don't know. I don't know the chronology of it. I know that's an interesting question. I'd have to think about, like, people talk about Creed Aventus, but I don't really know how old that
That's
is.
also 10 years old, by the way.
Oh, okay. I never really hopped on that particular train. I'm not the target market for Creed Aventus. That one has Creed has a little bit of a following. Maybe one of the Tom Ford Black Orchid has a following. Some of the Tom Fords have that kind of star power. But you're right. Those might be 10 years old too. Like, again, time has ceased to exist. I don't know really what day it is even.
One of the things about this fragrance, remember that book we reviewed? And I forgot the name of the book now. I'm so sorry. This was the
What was that
last
one?
fragrance.
Oh, the 100 years of
Yeah,
perfume.
feminine
Yeah,
fragrances. And this
right.
was the last fragrance that was featured in there. And I feel like maybe they haven't dug into anything that came after that, but I feel like this is probably like one of the last big stars in perfume. Like, nothing has come after this that has made that big amount of, you know,
Impact.
impact. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
You need to leave time for it to happen.
Yeah, you're
Um,
right.
like,
I
we
feel like
almost have to.
fragrances. No,
It takes a while to have. I mean, like, the ripple. Like, we're not going to know the ripple effect of COVID until, like,
oh,
we can look back at it and all of the industries and individuals it affected. Like, we're in the middle of it. We kind of don't have that view. Not to be depressing, apologies. But in the same way, you kind of can't write a retrospective of fragrance in the 21st century because we're 20% of the way through. So, like, this is going to be a very high impact fragrance of the first part of the 20th century, or 21st century.
yeah.
I don't
Anyway,
know. I mean, that's a great question, though, of, like, what other fragrances would be on that list. I mean, I think um,
they came out with Miss You, which was supposedly the masculine version of Portrait of a Lady, but they're not similar except for the fact that they both have patchouli in them, and that it stops there.
right, it's not even the same patchouli.
It's, yeah, also they're not the same perfumer, so they're different to me. But this is
Um,
definitely a league on its own. This is like the throne at the very top. It's like nothing comes close to it, even though it's been copied so much.
I do think they missed a trick with the name because it does imply a femininity that is there but isn't there. It isn't just for women. It works really well for men and for women. Whatever
Yeah,
the
I mean,
intention
when I
was.
was getting that compliment from that French couple, it was the husband that was asking me, not the wife. So I was like,
Well, I wonder, like, there could be a case, um, because Henry James, a man, wrote a book, Portrait of a Lady, describing a woman, like, in a sense, a portrait of her, a literary portrait. Um, Dominique Ropion is a man. Um, I don't know I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate this very well, but, like, I don't know. It's not gendered. It's not gendered feminine, though, even though it's a rose. And the word lady, like, it's almost. I mean, a lot has changed in 10 years on the gender front, gender
yeah,
politics, gender language, gendered language. It's 10 years ago is a long time in that. I don't know that I've heard people say it's really offensive. The word lady. act like a lady. It's a whole set of behaviors that are, there's a lot of implications that may not have even been in the cultural vernacular of 10 years ago. So that's an interesting perspective on it.
Do you think if they had not called it Portrait of a Lady and something more, I don't know, didn't have the word lady or, mentioned anything feminine or to do with a woman, it would have been more successful with men versus, I mean, it's a pretty successful fragrance for them.
Successful.
Yeah. But they would have had much more success is what I'm saying if it was named something different and it didn't have that word lady or woman or femme or female or whatever.
Maybe. I don't know. But I think people's perception, like good stands out. When something is this good and this attention getting, people will seek it out and it is a wild success. It's a great brand. It's a great perfumer. I think maybe it would have been bigger faster, if it had launched as, but it is a good name, Portrait of a Lady. It's a great name. I'm sure it was a great title for the book too. I don't know what I would, if it was just Patchouli Rose, I don't think that's a great name. It is a Patchouli Rose, but it's not going to, that, I don't think that really works either, even though it's gender neutral. So, but it's very adult. It's very I think the word lady is sort of there's nothing girlish about it. It's womanly.
It's womanly, it's mature, it's classy, it's elegant, it's dressy.
Can pull off, can have a conversation, has read a book, probably knows about art and theater and stuff. This isn't, this isn't giggly. It's not pink and young and let's go get trashed. This is very it's very elegant. It's refined. And I think the word lady maybe used to mean that and doesn't to me anymore. Language changes very quickly though.
Yeah. The other thing is beast mode.
Huge. And that's a very much a throwback.
80s, yeah, powerhouse.
Yeah. We don't there's still brands doing powerhouse fragrances. I think many of them see more success in the fragrance community. I wonder how many, maybe it's just, maybe in America it's less common for people to wear very big fragrances, and in other parts of the world people still do.
But they were wearing them in the 70s and 80s. I don't know what happened. People got really sensitive.
What happened? No, here's what happened. The 90s happened. Calvin
Aquatics happened.
CK1 happened. Aqua di Gio happened. Dracar Noir happened.
Well, no, that was a powerhouse from the 80s.
Well, but then
I wore that in 84, 85, 86.
It
and
was,
87.
but it was reformulated. And by the time it was the 90s, I don't remember it being a powerhouse anymore.
No.
I remember it being a drugstore fragrance.
Definitely.
Apologies.
I just bought a bottle recently.
And is it a powerhouse still?
It still smells pretty good, but it's not a powerhouse. Remember we were talking about in another video, Frederic Malle video for Sal Gos. We said, what do we want from Frederic Malle? We said some 70s and 80s powerhouses.
Yeah.
I would totally think that would be great from this house, because a lot of their fragrances do have that kind of classic inspiration.
Yeah.
I can totally see it in their catalog, but I don't know.
I've talked to you before about Ivoire de Balmain. Did I ever bring that over for you to smell it?
I don't think so.
I have to. I think you will. You might actually die though. So I don't want to kill you because it's just that good.
Don't kill me, please.
No,
I'm not ready to die.
No, don't die. That something like that. It's discontinued. I'm pretty sure. You can still find bottles every now and again on the Eves, aka eBay. It's beautiful. though, and that would it would really fit in a bottle like this, something like that. I 100% agree. If somebody from the brand or a perfumer who's about to work with them is listening.
Anyway, I don't know what else we could say about Portrait of a Lady, except for the fact that if you haven't tried it, you definitely need to go try it because it's a masterpiece. It's a historic fragrance.
It is, but it's also at this point, it's like a reference. Like Avignon is the reference for incense. Comme des Garçons Avignon. Like that's something that it's like a touch point that you can use to describe so many other things because so many people recognize it and know it. If you haven't smelled Portrait of a Lady at this point, like, first of all, where have you been? Second of all, I mean, sorry, no offense, but like, second of all, like, there's already so many like versions or fragrances inspired by it that like you don't know what people are talking about when they say, oh, it's kind of like Portrait of a Lady, blah 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 blah. Like it's a reference, sort of like Tower's L'Eau de Desert Moroccan. It's one of those like cornerstone niche references at this point, I think. Do you agree? Is it like you? I mean, is it like you have to get yourself a sample just so that you know what it smells like?
Yeah, don't because if you're a man and you see the name, don't say I'm not going to ever wear that because it has that name. Because when you smell it, like I could put this in a sample and not write a name on it and give it to you, and you smell it, you'd be like, oh my god, that's amazing. But you know, just look at it that way. Or, you know, keep an open mind about it because it's totally a unisex fragrance. If I find it to be very masculine leaning because it's so potent and big. It just has, because of fragrances like that, I feel like they're on the masculine side because they're just really, really intense fragrances. And I always think of more softer fragrances to lean more feminine, you know, floral and things like that. Even though this is rose, it is so masculine with every other note that's in here, you know, the sandalwood and the spices and the incense and the patchouli.
Although, as a woman, and for the women watching, it's not that masculine. I wear it and it's just very womanly. It's very elegant. It's very formal. It's but at the same time sort of warm and spicy. And for as big as it is, it's very inviting. Not like inviting's not the right word. It's familiar, sort of, but austere at the same time. Like because smelling another person is very personal. But this is so big that like a lot of people can smell you. It's an interesting sort of we're still talking about Portrait of a Lady. I'm like setting.
You mentioned warm and spicy, which I do totally get from this, but there's also something cold about it.
Yeah.
When you mentioned austere, I'm like, yeah, she's really right because the experience is very warm and spicy, but there's something cold about it, and that's why I find it to be like very gothic, kind of Victorian winter. You know, when it's cold outside and icy and people are all dressed up, that kind of totally reminds me of this fragrance, that kind of visual. It's very, very cold and warm at the same time.
Yes. It's, you know, I mean, people throw around the word genius and the word masterpiece, and it's like.
I just did.
Well, but this is. Like, it's not like A for effort. It's really.
It's definitely a masterpiece.
Yeah. It's like if you had an apprentice or something like in the world of perfume, like in the throwback sense of like somebody was like, teach me about perfume. Like this would be like the 101 class, like with Avignon and L'Eau de Desert. Like teach me about niche perfume. It's like, okay, here are the things you need to smell so that we can get started.
Mm-hmm.
This is on that list.
Totally. You're absolutely right. This definitely would be on that list.
Happy 10th anniversary.
Yeah, I know. Happy 10th anniversary.
Dominique Ropion, and I'm sorry about mispronouncing your name, sir. And
Dominique Ropion?
Yes. That guy.
That's the best I can do.
What? No,
Any,
it's beautiful. It's really
yeah.
nice.
Guys,
Glad I
it's
have
really,
it.
really beautiful. If you haven't tried it, please do get a sample or go smell it in the store. Sadly, here in San Francisco, Barney's is gone, but I think they are now making a presence at Neiman Marcus. But with the pandemic, you can't just walk in. I think you have to make an appointment at Neiman Marcus. Either way, I hope you guys get to try this. Thanks, Dahlia, for stopping by on camera to do this video with me. Guys, if you have any questions or comments, please list below. Other than that, thanks so much for watching today. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.